All right, good to go. Hi, I'm Kathy. I'm your moderator for today. You might see me as Kathy on Sewing for Renaissance Festivals as an admin. Today's class is on gathering using, among all things, the fork method with Mikki Evans. Hi, Mikki. Some of you may be sewing along with us. Others of you might have questions. If you have questions, please go ahead, use the chat. That way we don't interrupt Mikki while she's going. And at a apropos spot, I'll bust in and let her know what the questions are, and she can give you the answers, and I'll put them in the chat for you. This way everybody will have them. This video will be uploaded to our YouTube channel, or Sewing for Renaissance Festival's YouTube channel. So if you missed it, you can check it out there, or if there's something that you want to keep playing it over and over again to see, you can check it out there. That's all I have to say, and I'm going to turn it over to you, Mikki.
Thank you, Ms. Kathy. I'm Mikki. I go by Fairy, and I'm part of Fairy Creative. I have been sewing for the last 15 years. So today I'm going to show you how to end up sewing gathers and pleats with a ruffle foot, a gathering foot, a fork, and for those who don't have these fancy pieces of equipment, how to do it just with your sewing machine or with your serger. So when you set up your machine, you're going to want to make sure that you have your top thread and your bottom thread done correctly. I have mine set to go counterclockwise, like my machine indicates. And I'm using a plain piece of cotton fabric. So the first thing I'm going to show you is how to gather without any of the fancy equipment. So you're going to end up taking your tension on the top, and you're going to max that out. Mine goes up to a 9. You're going to adjust the stitch length to a 3. I have mine set all the way to the left. And from there, I'm going to line it up with this edge and sew. And if you want a deeper gather, you're going to pop it up to the 5. Your threads. So the two types that you have here is the one with the 5 stitch length and the one with a standard 3. The standard 3 is not as deep or as roughly. The one with the 5 is more roughly. And these you can move around the gathers a little bit to disperse them the way you want. So this is cool.
So the 5 is the longer stitch and the 3 is the shorter stitch, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Yep, 5 is the longer stitch that gives you deeper ruffles, and 3 is a shorter stitch that is more subtle. These are really good for when you want to take in fabric for sleeves. When it says to gather down sleeves, you can do it this way, or you can run 2 stitches with a 5 on about an inch apart from each other, and then you pull them and it'll give you a nice gather. I'm going to reset my machine.
So you set your machine with regular tension for this one?
This next one, I'm going to set it back to the regular tension. And the regular tension on machines has a little bit of leeway between 3, 4, and 5. I keep mine on 4 since I have the middle ground, and I normally have less issues with that. So when you get patterns that says to gather down fabric for sleeves, cuffs, a lot of Renaissance shirts have yokes and a straight piece of fabric underneath it that you gather to match the circumference of the yoke. Does anyone have any questions? No? All right. So I'm going to demonstrate what they mean whenever you get a pattern that says to gather down fabric, especially for cuffs. So I am going to set my stitch to a 4, which is a longer stitch length, so it's going to go through the fabric a lot faster. And on these, you do not back stitch. If you back stitch, you cannot pull the thread. try not to sew really fast, because I'm only speeding through everything. Give yourself a couple inches on the tail. Then you're going to go back, line the side of this surface up with the edge of the stitch that you've just done. And you're going to sew right along that line. Make sure not to catch your threads on the last go. So now we got our 2 rows of thread that you're going to use to gather down. You're going to grab the top thread on both sides and you're going to pull it. One sort. Sometimes you might have to grab the back threads. And you're going to slowly pull these threads, because if you yank it too hard, you're going to snap them and you're going to undo all of your threads. Try and keep this in focus of the camera. Once you get the gathers to where you need to and it meets the measurement for the sewing project you're on, you can take your front and back thread on each layer and you're going to put a simple knot in the end. And from here, you're going to repeat the same thing on the other side. And I've noticed over my years of sewing that if you take a nice iron to it and you steam these gathers in, you have an easier time sewing through them. We're trying to add cuffs, collars, and sewing another piece onto this. We got a little piece of gathered fabric. And as you notice, it has gotten a lot smaller than the original yardage that I used. So when you do gathering or pleating, you're going to have shrinkage and you're going to have to account for that. So this is only about half of the original fabric length. So I'm going to move on to a ruffle foot. These are a attachment you can use in order to get pleats and gathers. I have a low shank machine. That just means that this piece of my machine sits lower with this attachment than higher on something like an industrial machine or a machine that has the foot that comes down from this way, which is higher up. Simply put, I'm just going to take this off. I have one screw right here. You remove the screw, you take that assembly off. I'm going to snap this back together so I don't lose it. And then I'm going to attach this. It's recommended that you take your needle off so you don't snap your needle, because this can be a little tricky to put on. You can normally find these on eBay or Amazon for anywhere from like $7 to up to $30 is how much I've seen them. I normally have a coin around here that gets this off a lot easier, but I'm just gonna make do with this screwdriver. You work with me? Everyone needs a sewing room quarter. Improvised skills for improvised jobs. Okay. So this has an attachment right here. This is going to line up with this screw. And I'm going to make sure that this hook goes with this metal piece on my machine. This is what has that thread that feeds through. If it's not attached, it's not going to gather the fabric.
I always find this to be the hardest part, trying to get all those little pieces together.
Yeah, especially when your normal tools are like no, and you just have to improvise. There we go. So I have this attached. So when I raise my foot or turn my needle, it moves this. And then let's put the needle back. I'm using a universal needle since I go through a lot of different types of fabrics. Universals are easier to just have on the machine. But if you're working with like silk or silk dupree, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, probably not. You're going to want to use a needle designed for the shearer fabric, or you're going to get runs in it. All right, I'm going to set my machine so where it's going to move my needle to the center, because if not, you're going to break your needle. Yeah. All right, and now I get to feed this through. Ms. Kathy, you were asking about auto threading earlier, about machines, and I told you mine had it.
Yes.
This is normally the only time I use it because it's really hard to get your fingers back there. And it has 4 little prongs, and you're going to run it through the middle of those. Hold it taut, and it just pulls it through. There we go.
That makes life so much easier.
Yes, especially when your fingers are like not able to get through. Let me just use this fork here. All right, get my other thread. What do we use this? All right, so with this, I want to move my camera so I can show you all the front of this. So with this, we have 3 different levels. The first one is a star, and based on this, you will not have any gathering. That's just a straight stitch. This says 12, if I can get it to focus. That'll be every 12 stitches. Then we have 6 for every 6 stitches. And okay, and the last one's 3. So no, 1. This one's on 1. Normally they do have 12, 6, and 3, but mine's 12, 6, and 1. So every 1 stitch is going to move this to gather. All right, now let's set this back. If the camera works. Is that good?
A little higher, maybe.
All right,
There you go.
awesome. All right, now that we're back here, thank you, Miss Kathy. We're going to show you how to feed the fabric through. So we have two plates right here. We have a little piece of metal right here, and then this bottom plate. You can run fabric underneath if you want to sew sewing straight and then have it ruffled on top. This is normally done with lace or other trims. And it can be a little finicky to get this through. But I've noticed if I just mess with it with the little gathering foot, I can line the fabric up. And this does have about a 3-inch gap where you can feed the fabric and more. I like doing it towards the edge. I'll just feed it a little bit more though. And with this, you don't have to have any special tension, no special stitch length. You just have to make sure that your needle is in the center or you're going to snap your needle. So I'm going to start with 12 and I'm going to take this screw and unscrew it all the way. This will determine the depth of your pleats or gathers. All right, so with this all the way out, this is what it looks like by itself. If I lower the foot. Gather after every 12. We got one nice knife pleat. I'm going to tighten the screw all the way to max so you can see the max depth. All right, there we go. And I'm leaving on 12. And that makes a shallower pleat. So the more it's screwed in, the shallower the pleat is, the more it's screwed out, you have a deeper pleat. And you can really mess around with this to see how deep or shallow you want your pleats and how much it gathers. Each level for how many times this is going to gather the fabric does give a different effect. So I moved this down to 6 with it completely screwed in. And it gives you more. Pleats are really nice for like skirts or for like dusters at the bottom of those skirts when you walk down and you don't want to get the bottom of your dress messed up. And then we have 3. And this will give you a different effect as well. This is for like really frilly collars. All right, so all the way screwed out, all the way screwed in, 12, 6, and then 3.
Can you show us that again, please? A little lower.
Is there a particular order you would like me to do this in?
Oh, it wasn't the stitch, it was the final, like afterward.
Oh,
The
the 3.
the piece already done.
So not changing anything. Press a bit and and I'm going to loosen the screw so that we get something that's less gathered. So I screwed it about halfway out, so it's not as crunched up as this side.
Can you hold it down a little more? Yeah, there you go. That looks great.
All right, this is actually really good if you have, if you want to do those fancy court collars. You just put it on here and it just gathers it all the way down. When you do this, you can do a chest piece like this and then you can measure 1 inch on the regular. Bring us into your camera. I was gonna measure this whole thing because I'm going to do a little bit of math. So this is about 22.5 inches. All right. About 22.5 inches. It ended about right there. So from there, you can see how much it actually gathers down. And this is only about 6 inches. So this is about a quarter of the length that you originally started with. If I can get some focus, because my screen's halfway across the room. There we go. This is about 6 inches, and this is about 22.5. So I'm no math wizard, but based on that, it is about a quarter of the 22 divided by 6. That would be 318. Don't know if you guys can see my handwriting. I forgot I have another camera. So I did a little bit of math to show how much it gathers down. So when you do gathering for fabrics and dresses, you're going to have to take into consideration the depth of the pleats. You're going to multiply that by 3. And then you're going to take that final number. So let's say you have a 1-inch pleat and it's 3 inches. So 1 times 3 is 3. So 3 times 36 gives you about 96 inches, somewhere around there. So you're going to need that amount of yardage in order to have 1 yard of pleated or gathered fabric. All right, so the next attachment I do have is the gathering foot. This one you can sew with straight and gather the fabric on top. I'm going to take this off.
While she's doing that, did anyone have any questions about the gathering foot?
I just feel like I'm speeding right along. This is not like the last one.
What kind of machine do you have, Deanna? And Mikki, she was asking, she was saying that she needs to find out if there's one to fit her old machine.
What should the bolt? Is that a high shank or a low shank? Low shank is what standard home sewing machines like this brother or a Singer or a Kenmore has. I don't think I actually have it.
She says she has an Elna. I'm not familiar with those. Are you?
Kinda. I don't own one, but just bring out my sewing machines. Does it look like this type of attachment on the side on how high it is?
She says it's about 40 years old.
All right, so that's probably a low shank. So the one that I have is universal. So this is a universal one since it's, I got it from eBay. So this should work for your machine.
She said she thinks it's shorter.
Let me see if I can Google this real quick.
But you don't have to. I'll do that for you. That's what I'm here for.
All right, could you Google that and see if I can see a picture of it? I just realized I never explained what a shank is on a machine. So that is this far. And depending on where this screw sits, depends on if it's a high shank or a low shank. And most of the time when you get a high shank machine, it's more of an industrial machine. Most standard home sewing machines are low shank. Best sewing tool I've ever had. It's a quarter. It works on everything. All right, so I got this attached. Going to use my auto threader. Work. So this is the gathering foot. So it starts with this piece right here. So this is where you feed flat fabric into, and it does not gather. And the gathering happens because of the feed dogs. So I'm going to adjust my tension to 5, my stitch length to 4. And with this one, it does not matter which way your needle is. You can have it to the left, the right, or in the center. I'm just going to leave it in the center because I already have it set to that. And from here, I'm going to show off that fancy, it gathers and it doesn't gather at the same time. Drop the needle and troubleshooting. So it looks as though it's barely catching the fabric, so I'm going to adjust my needle so it's more to the left because it's making everything go sideways. This is a new foot to me. I bought a new pack since when I moved, I lost some of my feet. Losing feet's not fun, so I'm just going to start about an inch from where I left off. Drop the needle. And feed both. You can change the tension to get a deeper pleat. With this one, I'm going to crank it up to 9. Set this to 3. Really, with these feet, you can play around with it to get the look that you want. But what makes the gathering happen is actually the feed dogs that are at the bottom. So if those move at a different rate, you're going to get a different result on the pleats and gathers. This is not straight at all. Just flatten this out. There we and it has gathered this and kept this straight. This is good for like putting trim on dresses. I did sew it more towards the center on this, just simply because that's just how deep this is allowing me. My other one had a deeper inset. And you can steam this down and you'll get a nice gather. It's not one of my favorite feet, still useful. It's just not my favorite. So I actually prefer doing it with a regular foot and then changing the tension. This is just something fancy so that you can sew straight and ruffle it at the same time. All right, moving on. The fork. The fork knows all. The fork is amazing. I actually learned about this one about 3 years ago. I had a sewing meetup with one of my friends. I had saw it on a little video on Facebook. And with the fork, you just use it similar to a tool known as a easy pleat. Easy pleat is just something that has a prong and you just turn. And you gather fabric that way. Easy prongs, I don't own one, but they do have different sizes, anything from 1.5 inches to 2 inches. Do I have any more questions? All right, so everyone's going to have a different fork. This is my standard fork. I just ran down to the kitchen a minute ago and grabbed it. So this is about 1 inch. And I want to say out of that, I'm going to divide that by 4. So each of these is 0.25. And when you pleat with this, remember which time you're putting the fabric through. So that way you have even pleats. And this just creates a bunch of knife pleats. Knife pleats are pleats that are just like this. And it's very straight. You see this a lot on school skirts, especially if you do cosplay. Yeah, most of them do have skirts that require pleating. So I put it through this last time and I'm going to fold it over. Slide it out because you don't want to sew onto that. That'll break your needle. And then I'm going to stitch. Still using that last time. Flip. Undo it. Get another one. Straighten out fabric. So sometimes you're going to fiddle with it. It's just a learning curve on this. And also the inside of my machine to my fork. My fork's a little big. It's not wanting to line up correctly, but you just remember to use the same time. Work the fabric. Mess with it. if you use like a decorative fork, like one of those ones that you use for like tea or an oyster fork, you might get smaller gathers because those are about half the size of this standard fork. Nothing fancy. I'm trying to keep this hemline straight. So a few more stitches with the foot. And after a while, you're going to fall into a pattern so where you're able to do this and not have as many issues as you do when you first start out. I'm going to reference back to, I said the fork is an inch, so when you spin it and you make this pleat, it's using 3 times the amount of fabric. So you're gathering down 3 inches on a 1-inch fork. Finish off that stitch. And you got some beautiful knife pleats. You can take this over to your iron and steam it down. About 11, well, 10.5 inches. About 11. So, there we go. And the last one I can show you guys is how to actually gather our serger. I know that you guys have a lot of questions in the group about what you do is use a serger for, how to set one up. And I actually learned this just from making, I make fleece flowers, and they're really nice for accents on dresses. I'm currently making a Rococo dress, and they call for flowers. This is the quickest way I know to actually do it and not have the bottom fray out. So I'm going to move my camera. Is that good? That's good. All right. So with this, I have set my machine. There is a dial on the side. I have it at 1. This will control how much the feed dogs at the bottom will gather. And I'm going to set that up 2 ticks right under the 2 mark. And from here, I do have this so it will cut the fabric. So be careful with this little blade right here.
Can you raise the camera up just a little bit? Sorry, I couldn't get to my microphone.
Okay. Probably might have to hold this. You said up a little?
Yeah, that looks great.
All right, I'm just going to hold this as I sew. And I'm going to adjust this. It should be gathering. There we go. All right, it's not going to work today. Oh. So usually when you set it up, it should work. I wanted to show this another time then. I'll probably put this in with the serger video. But it's not going to work today. I'll have to fiddle with it. All right, I figured it out. All right, where get my scissors? All right, so I actually did figure it out. So it's a 5, a 3, and then you put this all the way at the top, and it gives you like these little gathers. So because it's a serger and I can redo this as many times as I want, depending on how short I want this, I just want to run it through again and fix it. All right, and you got nice little gathers. It's not much, but it does add up when you make them into little flowers.
Can you hold it down a little bit lower for the camera?
Yes. Or I can bring it over to the camera behind me.
Oh, that looks good right there. If you hold them right by your dials, we can see them perfectly.
And normally I would do these at an angle where I sew these strips, so it does make the flower a bit easier. Let me just. And with these, you would just run a stitch through the bottom of this. This is just a piece of scrap fabric, so it's not as pretty, but if you do a nice scallop edge, you get really pretty roses.
That is such a neat trick. I never even thought of that.
You can also do this with the regular sewing machine, wherever we do, let me see, where it's like this. You can wrap it up, just keeping this bottom hem right, and it'll make like really pretty flowers. You just do it in a long triangle. All right. Did anyone have any more questions? Did I do better with questions?
The chat's been quiet so far. You're explaining everything very detailed. It's wonderful.
I have anxiety. That's why.
We have about 10 minutes left.
All right. So let's do a little bit of Q&A then, since I've already gone through all the pieces of the fabric and I've shown you all three methods, plus a bonus method and the serger method. Is there anything about the front side of the machine that you guys have questions on tension, anything like that?
Someone does have a question on if you would do a video on, if you would do another one of these sessions on flowers alone.
Yeah, I would love to do that. And I would actually love to do that. If you guys have suggestions for videos for me, I'm willing to do them. I've been sewing for the last 15 years. I mostly make costumes and cosplays. So, and also none of the patterns I use, I keep as they are from the factory. I modify things. My whole entire thing is making things custom for people's bodies. Because we're all not the same. And I kind of got tired of never finding a costume that would fit me.
I know exactly what you mean. That's the beauty of sewing.
Mm-hmm. Any more questions? Because I am out of ideas, to be completely honest. I went through this a lot faster than I expected.
Well, no, you did a great job. It was very thorough. And if no one has any questions, we can end the sessions right now. Usually they run from about 45 minutes to an hour.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to thank all of you guys for coming. We really appreciate your participation. And Mikki, really want to thank you. This was absolutely wonderful and very informative. And you got a thank you from Deanna here.
You're welcome. The next video I'm probably going to do is either body measurements or cleaning the machines.
I think it's body measurements first.
All right, let me see if I can recruit some of my friends who show up so I can give you guys a wide variety. If not, you're just going to deal with me.
Wonderful, wonderful. All right, thank you so much. And everyone have a nice day.
Have a good day. Bye.